I never questioned who my grandfather was. He was the kind of man people looked up to, served in the army, married his high school sweetheart, raised a family, and never missed Sunday Mass. After he passed, I was the one who volunteered to clean out his house. I figured it was the least I could do for the man who'd taught me how to ride a bike and tie a tie. What I didn't expect was to find a side of him I never knew existed. In the attic, buried beneath boxes of medals and old jackets, I found a small chest with my name on it. Inside were letters, yellowed with time and tied with a faded blue ribbon. Each envelope was addressed to someone named Elise. The handwriting was unmistakably his, sharp, elegant, and deliberate. I read the first one standing there, heart thudding as I saw the opening line. My dearest Elise, not a day goes by that I don't ache for your touch. My throat tightened. Elise wasn't my grandmother. That much was immediately clear. I read on, each letter painting a picture of a man desperately in love. He spoke of her laugh, the curve of her handwriting, the way she smelled of jasmine and salt. This wasn't some casual fling. This was a full-blown affair of the heart, intense, intimate, and real. He told her he loved her, over and over again, that he wanted to leave everything behind, that he was hers. But he never did. The letters ended abruptly in 1964. The last one was shorter, sadder, more bitter. You made your choice, James. You chose duty, not love. I waited, but I won't wait forever. I sat on the attic floor, letter in hand, unsure what to feel. Betrayal wasn't even the right word. It was more like disorientation, like the foundation of everything I knew about him had cracked. I kept thinking about my grandmother, how devoted she was to him, how she called him her soulmate. Did she know? Did she ever suspect that while he was promising her forever, he was writing love letters to another woman across the ocean? I started to wonder how much of our family's story was built on a lie. My grandfather, the loyal husband, the family man, was it all a performance? Or was he simply a man caught between two lives? A man who made a choice and buried the consequences? The more I read, the more haunted I felt. These weren't just words on paper. They were pieces of a man I thought I knew. And now, I wasn't sure who he really was. The man in the photographs, smiling next to my grandmother, holding me as a baby, was that the same man who wrote, "When I close my eyes, I see your face, not hers." That night, I didn't sleep. I kept rereading that last line. Did you ever love me at all? And I didn't know who Elise was asking. Him or me. He met her in the summer of 1962. Her name was Elise, a nurse stationed near his military base in Germany. She was nothing like his fiancée back home. Elise was fierce, curious, never afraid to challenge him. Their first conversation lasted hours. It wasn't supposed to go further, but it did. What began as chance quickly turned into habit, coffee, shared books, quiet evenings. And then one night, she kissed him. He didn't stop her. In his letters, he wrote that Elise made him feel alive in a way he hadn't known was possible. She wasn't just an escape. She was a mirror. She saw through his uniform, his medals, his practiced smile. She saw the fear, the regret, the longing. And instead of turning away, she leaned in. He confessed things to her he never dared say out loud. That he wasn't sure about marriage. That he didn't want to go back to a life that felt chosen for him. That with her, the future seemed uncertain, but real. Their affair wasn't secret in the way cheap romances are. It was full of purpose, intention. He told her he loved her, that he wanted to stay, that he would write to his fiancée and call off the wedding. Elise didn't ask for promises, but he gave them anyway. In those moments, he meant every word. But time kept moving. His orders came through. He was to return home in 8 weeks. Elise didn't beg him to stay, but her silence made it harder. He delayed telling his fiancée. He convinced himself he needed more time, that he could fix everything. But deep down, he was afraid. Afraid of choosing wrong. Afraid of the backlash. Afraid of hurting the people who believed in him. So he made the decision that seemed safe. He went home. He didn't write to Elise. Not even once. He married his fiancée 2 months later. The same hands that held Elise's waist slipped a ring onto another woman's finger. He told himself it was duty, responsibility, honor. That Elise would move on. That maybe it hadn't meant as much to her. But the guilt followed him, long after the vows, the children, the years. Her final letter came a year after his silence. She had waited, hoped, then understood. She called him a coward, not in anger, but in sorrow. Said she never expected forever, just the truth. She wondered aloud if he ever meant to stay, or if she had simply been a detour. Daniel, reading all this decades later, felt like a thief breaking into someone's heart. His grandfather hadn't just cheated on his grandmother, he had loved someone else deeply and walked away from her. He hadn't stumbled into a mistake, he had run from a truth he couldn't face. And now, Daniel was left with the reality that his family didn't begin with love. It began with a lie. A choice. One that broke a woman's heart and shaped the future of everyone who came after. Daniel couldn't let it go. The letters haunted him, not because of what they said, but because of what they didn't. He needed to know what became of Elise. He searched online, through archives and genealogy sites, until he found her obituary. She had passed away 2 years ago in a small town 3 hours away. She'd never married. Listed among her surviving family was a daughter, Anna, born in 1964. The timeline didn't lie. James left in 1963. Elise gave birth less than a year later. Daniel felt a knot in his chest. Had his grandfather known? Had he abandoned not just a woman, but his own child? Driven by something between guilt and duty, Daniel found a way to contact Anna. He sent a message, careful, respectful. She replied 2 days later with a single sentence, "You must be the grandson." They met in a park. Anna looked nothing like Daniel, but there was something familiar in her eyes, calm, observant, guarded. She told him that Elise had spoken about James often, but never bitterly. She didn't hate him, Anna said. She just never understood why he never came back. Daniel asked the question he'd been holding inside. "Did he know about you?" Anna paused, then shook her head. "Not then." She wrote him, but never got a reply. She said she didn't want to trap him. She gave him the chance to ask, and when he didn't, she stayed silent. Daniel felt the floor of certainty crumble again. Maybe James never knew. Or maybe he knew and ignored it. Either way, Elise had raised Anna alone. No support, no explanation. Just memories and a single photograph of James in uniform. Anna pulled it from her purse, creased, old. This was the only picture she kept of him. Daniel tried to explain. About James' life, the image of the perfect husband, the burden of duty. But Anna didn't flinch. "I'm not angry," she said. "He chose his path. So did my mother. But you deserve to know the truth, and so do I." They sat in silence. Decades of secrecy and half-truths pressing between them. It wasn't just infidelity anymore. It was abandonment. Elise had lived a life shaped by someone else's silence. Anna had grown up without a father who could have changed everything with a single letter. Daniel realized he wasn't just uncovering a romantic betrayal, he was facing a generational wound. A story rewritten through omission. A life split in two. He looked at Anna and didn't see a stranger. He saw a cousin. A bloodline lost in the spaces between love and fear. His grandfather had been more than what he showed the world. And the consequences of his silence weren't just emotional, they were human. Breathing. Sitting across from him with folded hands and an unreadable face. For the first time, Daniel wasn't angry. He was simply aware. Aware of what happens when people run from truth. And how sometimes the people they hurt never get the chance to ask why. Daniel didn't know what to feel anymore. Grief, betrayal, confusion, maybe all of it at once. His grandfather had built a life on choices that seemed right at the time. But those choices left damage behind. Elise lived with the pain of being forgotten. Anna grew up never knowing where half of her story came from. And now Daniel, the grandson who idolized him, was forced to reconcile the man he thought he knew with the man who once walked away from love and responsibility. He tried to understand it. Maybe his grandfather had been scared. Maybe he thought love wasn't enough to build a future. Maybe he truly believed he was doing the honorable thing. But what is honor when it silences truth? What is loyalty when it's built on a lie? These questions spun in Daniel's mind with no easy answers. He wasn't looking to condemn his grandfather. He just wanted to know why. Anna didn't seem to carry resentment, just a quiet sadness. She didn't grow up angry. She grew up incomplete. Her mother gave her love, education, kindness, but never clarity. The silence around her father became a wall that no one ever dared to break. Until now. Daniel decided to write his own letter, not to Elise, not to James, but to Anna. He wrote that he was sorry for the part of the family that never reached her. He told her she belonged just as much as anyone else, that her existence wasn't a mistake or a shameful secret. It was real, it mattered, and it would be acknowledged from now on. She wrote back simply, "Thank you for not turning away." In time, they met again. Conversations deepened. They shared childhood stories, found strange overlaps in personality, subtle traces of the same bloodline in how they thought, how they laughed. The truth hadn't broken them. It had, in a strange way, connected them. A fracture that had started decades ago now had a chance, however late, to heal. Daniel stood at his grandfather's grave, with no desire to accuse. He placed Elise's final letter there, not as an act of anger, but of release. The words had waited long enough. "You made your choice, James," it read. "But did you ever love me at all?" Daniel realized that love isn't always clean or noble. Sometimes it's messy, fearful, hidden in places even the person feeling it can't admit. His grandfather had loved Elise, and yet he left her. He had loved his family, and yet he never spoke of the daughter he might have had. Both could be true. As Daniel walked away, he understood that legacies aren't just medals and stories. They're the truths we choose to face, and the ones we run from. His grandfather had run, but Daniel wouldn't. He had looked beneath the surface, past the perfection, and found the man in full, flawed, torn, human. Maybe that's what we all want in the end. Not to be perfect, just to be known.